We've got him back on Monday, but we have him more than just Mondays. It's Todd McShay here on the show. We're going to talk some college ball, some NFL, but let's start first with what you're doing. Now it's official, which we already hinted at a couple weeks ago, but you got a new pod coming up, so I'm fired up for you, man. What do we got?
I appreciate it. Excuse me. Good way to start. Cloudy voice. Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturday nights throughout the season, the McShay Show is getting ready to launch tomorrow. And I've thanked you privately, but I also want to thank you publicly for the assist in this and helping it get going. And life has come full circle, ESPN to Spotify, The Ringer, and, two guys helping each other out. And hopefully we can build something fun here.
Yeah, I'm fired up for you, man.
What's your advice, bud? I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's good. That's helpful.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. No matter what you do, in 6 months, you're just going to be better. So you can stress about not being as good as you want to be in the beginning of it. But I remember certain TV things, once I realized, whatever you want to put into this first week, these first few shows, it is unavoidable that it'll just not be as good right now as it will be in 6 months.
Yeah.
So if you go into that knowing that the stuff now versus what you'll build towards in the draft, you'll figure out all the different things. Just keep trying things, and eventually you'll know what works. You've been doing content for 2 decades, so you have good instincts on it. So you don't really need my advice other than it's a lot easier.
I think it's good for people to hear too. There's a lot of people starting their own podcasts, but I'm excited, man. I got my guy Steve Mensch is going to be a part of the show. He's been with me for 20 years. He'll just be kind of my sounding board, and we'll have a bunch of guests. We're starting with David Pollock tomorrow, and I'm sure Kuiper will be coming on soon, and all our people. I'm excited.
I'm fired up, man.
Yeah.
No, look, Pollock was my last guest ever on an ESPN pod. Speaking of Georgia, let's just get into it here.
Let's do it.
Look, I didn't go into Georgia, Texas thinking Georgia could not win, but based on what we had seen from them, the offense, the first half against Bama, some could say the Mississippi State game was a result that was concerning, maybe the Kentucky thing. But my God, for them to dominate the way they did with their edge guys, all those number 10, number 11, number 13 against that Texas O-line, that was, as I said in the beginning when I did my top 12, I think that's the most impressive performance I've seen from one single unit all season long in college football. And so they are where we need to start.
It was interesting, right? Because we were taping a test show for the first 10 minutes of the game on Saturday night, just to peel the curtain back.
Good timing.
Yeah, well, life happens. Came downstairs, and I think it was 17-0 at the time. So I hadn't seen it. I didn't see exactly what happened, but Ewers is benched, and Carson Beck is still in, and so I got caught up on what was going on. Then I went and watched the tape yesterday. I was watching the NFL games and just watching the tape. I wanted to watch Ewers and how he performed. I wanted to watch Carson Beck and how he performed. Getting ready for our first show tomorrow. We got a lot of quarterback talk tomorrow. Kick things off. Get ready for the 2025 NFL draft, but also tying it into college football and what's going on. So I started with Carson Beck, and with the understanding, obviously, that Ewers got benched. And I was like, wait a second. Why didn't this guy get benched? And then I watched, no, seriously, why didn't Carson Beck get benched? If a quarterback in this game was to get benched, why wasn't the guy who's overthrowing a post route with a wide open receiver, the guy who's making his receivers, as we've talked about all year long, work for it too much? The guy who the interception, the first interception, I think it was on him. The second interception, it was supposed to be flattened out. The receiver's supposed to flatten out, and there was a miscommunication. The third interception was too high on that angle route. And so, and I'm going through it, and I'm like, this is interesting. But then when I watch Ewers, he was more confident, more accurate, more kind of in tune with how things were going. He just ran into a freaking buzzsaw. It wasn't, there were a couple drops. But as it went on, and right before he got benched, and I started to understand, you could see he was feeling it. Ghosts in the pocket, he wasn't getting settled. And so I could understand Sark didn't bench him to bench him for the rest of the game. It was very clear Sark wanted to just calm him down. because Ewers was in control. He was doing all the right things for like two, 3 series. But then the series before he got benched, you could tell the pressure was affecting him. Now he's making bad decisions. Now he's getting the ball out before he needs to. So like you could see it was Sark saying, hey, come over here. Take a deep breath. Let's watch things for a minute from the sideline, which I've always said is it's the most frustrating and the worst thing in the world to be rotated or to get benched. But I learned the most in my career by sitting and watching others and how I would do things and how I wouldn't do things and all that. And you could see when he came back in the second half, he was settled down. And the offense had settled down. And they started to move. And the second half was more representative of what Sark expected and what we kind of all expected. But at the end of the day, man, like you play that well on defense, and as angry as they were and as disciplined as they were, that's the secret sauce for Kirby Smart. It always has been. The disrespect card, yes, but it's the disrespect card to get through to your every single player on that defense, the first team guys, the backups, whoever, whatever your role is. It's not to get them where they're in a lather. Well, while that's helpful, it's only helpful for so long in a game. Where it really benefits you, and I'm a big believer in this, is during the week of practice. When you tell these guys, no one believes in you. Everyone's going to pick Texas, all the same shit that they went through that they went through and that we heard about post game. When you are driving and drilling that into your players, what you're going to get is a level of focus and then during practice, and then a level of discipline and being in position and having the gap that you're supposed to be, and the linebackers, like cat blitzes and corner blitzes being in the perfect spot. Like all of the plays that were made by great talents, yes, but they were made because the scheme was dialed up really well and the players were in the exact position they needed to be. And that resulted in Jalen Walker, who's one of the most versatile defensive players in the entire country, having the 3 sacks, the forced fumble, and all the plays that he made. That resulted in Mykel Williams with the 2 sacks. That resulted. One guy, nobody's talking about this dude, and I got to study more tape, but my God, did he jump off the tape? Number 6 for Georgia. Dalen Everett, sack, interception, fumble recovery. He was all over the field.
So, we're going into that game and you're like, all right, Texas checks all of these boxes. And what I'm, as we're caught up in every college football season, way too carried away at the beginning of the year of like, these are the 3 definitive teams and then there's nobody else. And then it's like, okay, well, then Georgia has this, like Beck just hasn't been good enough, even though he put up a million numbers against Mississippi State, but I think they're the worst defense in the SEC. If they're not, they're in the conversation for it. And look, Beck's not getting benched because we're talking about Gunnar Stockton versus Arch Manning, the most heralded recruit. So it's slightly different. I had no issue with it. As I said earlier, I think it was just giving Texas a different look with Manning's legs versus Ewers because the pass rush was so out of control.
I totally agree.
Yeah, and I have no issue with
for Georgia fans, and just so we're clear, I'm not saying Beck should have been benched. I'm just saying having missed the live TV action and then going back and just watching it on tape, what occurred, it was kind of ironic. Like, wait, if a quarterback was going to be benched, maybe it should be the guy who just threw 3 picks, But I'm not saying he should have been benched by any stretch. I'm just saying if one of the two, I would have guessed the guy with 3 interceptions.
So what I'd like to do though after that game is it'd be really easy to fall right back into the Texas trap that we just went through, because you could, after that game, which of course I saw a ton of, is, well, why was Texas any good? And you're like, dude, they're giving up 6 points a game. You're like, all right, yeah, but they hadn't played anybody. Like, yeah, you're right. Michigan's already on its 3rd quarterback, so 31-12 may not mean anything there. Then it's UTSA, Louisiana Monroe, Mississippi State, that's nothing. Oklahoma, who I cannot believe Venables benched Arnold in the game against Tennessee. People down there said, no problem. And then you've got Hawkins turn it over 3 straight possessions to start that game. They go back to Arnold. So I don't feel like it's as easy as just saying, well, Texas was a fraud because of all of the different stuff. Like, I still think Texas is in this. I also wonder if Sark would go, all right, this O-line that's like 320, 330 across the board, like, do I have to change up the game planning here a little bit? I know Bond was probably dealing with some injuries, and Golden, who was certainly having moments there where it felt like he didn't love, or no, it was actually on the other side for Georgia, one of their receivers that felt like he wasn't really up for it.
Number 6.
Number 6, yeah. Number 6, a couple different times.
Jumped on,
like, okay.
Love it, right? Yeah,
I think it was Love It. So
he made some business decisions. I was surprised.
Yeah, I think the point would be there's this shift of Texas is perfect all week long, which I was buying into Georgia unravels them, and then it's like, who can possibly beat Georgia? And it's like, now we are just repeating the same thing over and over again, knowing that it's very week to week. I think Texas would game plan the rematch completely differently, considering what the edge guys did for Georgia and the one-on-one battles that they continue to win all night long.
Like, when are we? Let's learn our lesson, right? Like, Georgia came out. Georgia's performance in the second half against Alabama was more considerable or more, eye-popping than what we saw from Texas in the second half. But I think there's some similarities in that Georgia got ran out of the gym versus Alabama in the first half of that game and came back and had a lead for 13 seconds, but they had a lead. Texas didn't quite execute to the level that Georgia did in the second half against Alabama in this game against Georgia, but they still came out and it was a performance reflective of kind of what you would expect to see to a certain degree. It wasn't to the level, but it was certainly considerably better than the first half. The other thing is, Georgia may never play that good of a game again on defense, and maybe they will. Maybe this is going to be the new standard. We'll have to see. And I know, like, God forbid, there's perspective and like rationale and reasoning with the college football fans, but like, take a step back and be reasonable. Like, Texas just ran into a buzzsaw. Game day's there, all the excitement, all the hype, all the attention. Where was Georgia all week? It wasn't the same level of like interviews and all. This was the Texas show, right? And I think it would be a very different approach the second time around. And the second time around, let's see where they are in 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks, how Texas progresses, how they bounce back, how they recover from this. My guess is we're going to wind up seeing these two teams play again, because I look at this like, I know Oregon's your squad, and I love Oregon, and my goodness, was I overwhelmed by Oregon and their performance against Ohio State compared to what I was expecting. But to me, like, Texas is a better football team, and Oregon's number 1 in the country right now. Penn State, I would take Texas every single time. Texas against Ohio State, I probably would give the slight lean to Texas. So, like, I know they've got to drop to the polls. I think in the AP they were down to number 5, but I still think Texas is one of the 3 best teams in the country. And I can't wait to see. Hopefully there is a rematch, Texas Georgia, because I do think it will be different.
Yeah, I mean, the Texas poll thing like makes perfect sense. Okay, you're going to drop them because they're at home. Ohio State was on the road. That's fine. Same level of opponent. We're talking about the number 1 and 2 teams. I mean, none of this really matters, but the coaches poll just weekly embarrasses itself. I mean, they dropped Texas. I don't even look at it.
What did it do?
They dropped Texas to 6 behind Miami.
Yeah.
But, I wanted to get on the coaches poll here for giving Nebraska a vote. So 1 voter still had Nebraska, but somebody in the AP actually had Nebraska getting a vote there too as well. Usually it's the coaches just never giving up on Nebraska. All right. Anything else from the college weekend before we get to the NFL that you think? Like, I don't want to do a ton of Bama just because I feel like we've already done it. You and I were texting about Nico, and he's missing the deep shots over and over again. Mm-hmm. That's the 3rd straight half to start a game Tennessee hasn't scored a point. So it's a really nice win. It's this rivalry, 3rd Saturday in October. But like, I think the AP has Tennessee ahead of LSU.
Tennessee at 7, LSU 8. Yep.
Yeah. I don't feel I would pick LSU against Tennessee right now. I think the offense is better.
There are so many takeaways. I think the 2 things the thing that really stood out for both teams in that Tennessee-Alabama game, based off their histories, based off their offensive systems, where are the weapons? You know what I mean? Like, You just think about like the Jerry Judys, the Henry Ruggs, the Devontae Smiths, the Jalen Waddles, Jamison Williams, John Mechie, like, and you've got one guy, but it's like they missed a recruiting cycle at wide receiver. And so now you've got an unbelievable freshman, but
it's also some transfers out. I mean, Bond's running around for Texas. And he was a nice player. And Jermaine Burton, is gone. He's in the pros.
But my point is, it seemed through transfers out and maybe missing a recruiting cycle with the wide receivers, that really stood out to me. And Tennessee, the same. Like, I get the quarterback's inconsistent and overthrowing guys, and a lot of that is on him, and his head was spinning in the first half, played better in the second half. But without Dylan Sampson, and Dylan Sampson was MIA in the first half. He got injured, and Molly McGrath had the report. He went into the tent. I think he had 5 carries at the time that he went into the tent. I think he had 8 or 9 carries the rest of the half, but the medicine kicked in the second half. Right? I mean, he was back to normal, and then that offense was functioning at a pretty high level against a really good defense. Not an elite defense, but a really good defense. And so Dylan Sampson, we've said this for weeks now. Dylan Sampson is their offense, but Nico is going to have to make significant strides. But do they have the weapons? Like, do they legitimately have? Like,
they should. I mean, Thornton's good. Squirrel is good for a drop here and there, and I still love Brew. And I know he had a tough drop there, but I think McCoy's always somebody that you can kind of bank on.
He's your possession guy.
Physical.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, he's give me a slant. Give me him as a corner on his side on his own and cutting in front of a corner. Like, he should be able to win that every single time. I think Thornton's the secret sauce.
The secret sauce for Tennessee, let's just face it, when they were rolling offensively, was that you had a quarterback in Hendon Hooker who wouldn't miss the deep ball. Because it's not like they run the football, balance, run, short game. And then when they pop one, they were hitting it at a very high rate when Hendon Hooker was there with Jalen Hyatt. Now when they go try to pop one, it's like 1 out of 6, 1 out of 7 that they're connecting on. And that's the difference. It wasn't about a lot of deep shots, a lot of vertical stuff. It was about when they did it, they had a high success rate. Right now they don't. But
he was at one point after he missed the sideline shot down the right sideline, which he overthrew, which is becoming a normal thing.
Mm-hmm.
I can understand the sideline miss. The post missed, I have very little patience for, because I feel like the post, you have it open to that side. You can make it so much easier. You don't have to just nail the distance on the sideline throw. The post throw is an easier throw, and you shouldn't be overthrowing it because you're just giving space to the receiver to run underneath it. So you don't have to
Brian Greasy and I used to talk about this a lot. He would laugh about it. Like, sometimes it played to his advantage that he didn't have Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes' arm, because underthrowing or putting it up for grabs is a hell of a lot more effective on the deep ball than overshooting the guy, right? Because you got the chance for a pass interference, you get a chance for a 50-50 ball, you get a chance for DBs that turned around and can't locate the ball, and so your receiver can come back. When you overthrow it. And so part of it, I don't want to say it's coaching, but there's got to be a level of drilling it into Nico's head that, like, it's okay to undershoot this thing, put it up, give it a little more air,
Okay, let's do our Heisman eliminator here. As of right now, you've really got me.
I get you on the ropes, if I remember. I know we skipped it last week, but I'm fine to skip it the rest of the season.
You have your roster is Milroe, Cam, and Genty. I have Travis Hunter, Ewers, and Nico. The Genty pick, if I had Genty on my side, it'd be pretty good. But right now it stands. You have 2 of the top 2 favorites right now on FanDuel at both plus 200. Genty and Ward are plus 200. I have potentially Ewers still in the mix. Nico, I don't really see that happening. He doesn't even have the numbers for it. So what would the story be that he surpasses everybody? So that feels like a drop here after I was so excited to pick him up. I forget who was supposed to go first. I think
so. I have Genty and Ward. Is that right?
Yeah. So you've got me boxed out pretty good. All right, so I'm going to go first here just to keep it moving. I'm going to drop Nico, and I'll pick up Dylan Gabriel just because from an odds perspective, I need somebody with a real chance at this instead of getting cute. I was a little upset when I was looking at all of the options. I think Singleton from Penn State had odds, but the tight end for Penn State, Warren, didn't. Granted, a tight end's probably not winning the Heisman, but I just think for the sake of respect for Mechanicsville and what Tyler Warren has done this year, it'd be nice, put just a ridiculous number in there just so he could show his friends, hey, look, I'm on the board.
Yeah. I feel like, I'm obviously hanging with Genty and Ward.
Keep Milroe. Keep Milroe. He was in the conversation for QB1.
Watch yourself. I got to get rid of. I'll
never.
I've got to get rid of Milroe.
You guys lost your minds that week.
Yeah. Is that what you're going with? All right.
Yeah.
Call me in April. No, I'm kidding.
Call me in April.
I will.
And be like, hey, sorry.
I'll lose your number. I will. I'm gonna take Milroe out, and I'm gonna go with Cade Klubnik just for fun.
Yeah, I like it.
He's putting up huge numbers. I've always liked him. The Georgia game is always going to be lingering, but since then, man, what a run they're on offensively.
I love the Klubnik pick. Maybe you're just better at this than I am. All right, so it is in.
Yeah.
Do I drop anyone else? No. Do I go Beck? It's just not
Carson
really.
Beck?
No, I'm just trying to think of like any possible storyline to play it out. Like, hey, they end up being the 1 seed. You know what I'm saying? Like,
you don't want to go Curtis Rourke from Indiana? I threw an O in there, trying to make him Irish. More Irish, I guess.
Look,
I'm joking.
Maybe Diego Pavia, sympathy vote. No one else. No favorites running away for it. Vandy ranked again at 25.
I love it.
Ranking drought shorter than you would think with Vandy. Let's talk a little NFL.
Okay.
All right. Who would you rather have right now? Trevor Lawrence or Drake May?
Oh, gosh. Given, it really doesn't matter. I was going to say given current circumstances, but what the hell does it matter?
It's a really nasty
Who's
question.
older? Trevor. What? I'm joking. Trevor just turned 25 like 2 weeks ago. I was watching a broadcast of the game 2 or 3 weeks ago. He turned 25, which is, Michael Penix Jr. is 27.
Wait a minute.
Check it out. No, did I Google wrong?
There's no way he's 27. That's not true. He's 24.
Hold on. Michael Penix Jr. is 24. He's turning 27, I believe. Michael.
What, in 3 years? Yes.
Penix age. Oh, he's 24.
He's born in 2000.
Maybe I was thinking of somebody else. I don't know.
Dude, what do you get? Some Winky scouting report?
He's turning 25 in May. Yeah.
Next year.
Yeah. All right. So I guess they're basically the 1 year difference. My point is, what is Trevor in his 4th year right now?
This is year 5, isn't it?
Is it year 5? Yeah. So
year 4.
Year 4. So 4 years in the league, and Penix hasn't taken a legitimate NFL snap. So
Penix wasn't the question, but are you telling me you'd rather have Penix than Trevor Lawrence?
No, we went down a rabbit hole. Sorry.
All right.
That's what happens when I get on my phone. Oh gosh. I would still go with Trevor. I'm still going to go with Trevor. I'm hanging tough with Trevor. I see it. I get it. It's not working. I would like to see, there's going to be massive changes in Jacksonville. I think he took a step for a little while. I think they plateaued. I wonder, is he fully, physically, I don't know. He doesn't seem as comfortable and confident in what he's doing. He doesn't seem like his footwork is not the same. And so I wonder if he can get a reset and next year come back. But I'm not. Drake May, I've seen promising things. And I think, unfortunately, you'd like to send him a whole year, but at least now they brought him in, and everyone in the league, everyone in the organization realizes that this is one of the worst teams, if not the worst team in the NFL. So the pressure's not on Drake May. So I don't think it's going to be some kind of mental collapse or confidence-breaking year for the rookie. But from a talent perspective and what they can be, absolutely Trevor Lawrence.
I don't really have much to add to that. I thought May, has looked pretty good considering the situation and Polk dropping the football all over the place. We want to talk about one of the worst self-proclamations ever. Like, I got the best hands in the NFL. Like, well, stop dropping the football when everybody knew that you didn't anyway. There's confidence. There's just kind of times with other guys. I mean, the Pats are a mess. The roster's a mess. He doesn't have a ton of great options. And despite that, like, some of the numbers against pressure for him, it's like, and the thing is May's like one of those weird ones where the tape 2 years ago is so much better than the tape the year before, right? Is that fair to say?
Absolutely.
Right. So you're kind of like, man, it's like some of these guys that have this like one good year, one bad year, then he's the reverse of the Burrow. He's the reverse of the Jaden Daniels, or at least it's going in the right direction with May. But I think that's still the right pick. I just still cannot believe the Jags, like this whole thing has been this bad post-Urban and thinking Peterson had figured this out. But this is like this is such a carryover of where they were at last year, where I was defending them. I was like, hey, they're fine. They'll be good. And then it just off a cliff, and it's been the same thing. So nice win in London, but the Pats aren't any good. Okay, who are you more surprised about in the reclamation part of their thing? Because an awesome matchup between Detroit and Minnesota. Goff now is somebody like I expect great things from. Darnold got some play now actually trailing in a game, and I thought he made some terrific throws on top of everything else. Both I thought were, Goff, especially some of the pressure that we saw from Minnesota, just hanging in there.
Yeah.
Even though he had, the fumbles, that one fumble he recovered with his left hand while he was on the ground. I
saw that.
Believe he came back up with. So between the two, to be at this point where it's like Goff maybe feels more complete because we've seen it now for a little while, as opposed to Darnold just a month and a half in. But between the two, like, which is a better story for you?
They're both great stories, and we're starting to see more of that in the league now with guys leaving their first spot or maybe their second spot and having success. We talked about, Baker, obviously. Baker and Goff are kind of the poster children, but Darnold is kind of the next in line. I'm still like, I never totally wrote off Sam Darnold, but I also felt like I was on an island alone. And I know it wasn't alone. And I've heard the Belichick clips about the Jets are the only ones who didn't believe. And, part of that's the whole Belichick versus the Jets type of stuff. But, and I know friends in the league, people I talk to, I know there are a lot of people that continued to have support for Sam Darnold and believed he could be, what he's showing here. But you just wonder after how many years and how many stops, like, is that just, unfortunately, this is just a case where it's never going to turn around. So for me to see Darnold, and now we're in week what is it? 5 and so six
week
weeks.
7.
Yeah. So 6-7 weeks in, to see that he's still playing at this level, doing it against damn good defenses. And it's here to stay is, I guess, the best way to put it. You worry after a couple weeks, is it the competition they're playing or teams haven't adjusted to him yet? Like, he is the best version of himself that we've seen in the NFL. He is the best version of himself, even going back to USC in terms of protecting the ball, being decisive, knowing where he's going with it, understanding the timing, understanding his role. He had to mature. And I'm not talking like, as a human being, I mean, as a quarterback with his decisions and understanding like, yeah, it's great that you can do this every once in a while. You can create some plays and extend and all that. But if you don't cut all the crap out that comes with that, it's just never going to work. And I think the time he's had with very effective coaching, including Kevin O'Connell this year, is really kicked all that stuff out of his game. And it's great to watch. To me, like, to answer your question, coming out, I expected so much more out of Darnold than I did from Goff, just to be honest. At their lowest points, I still don't. Goff didn't reach the low point that Darnold did. Like the valley was so much lower for Sam with the organizations he was in, the failures he had, the turnovers, the ugly plays. Like, his valley was way lower than even the lowest moment for Jared Goff. And so to see him now kind of, I'm not saying he's at the level of Jared Goff or playing consistently like he does, but they're in the same neighborhood, and that's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's different. You're right. Like, I'm not saying, no, you're wrong, because Darnold, you're like, is this guy ever going to figure it out? Whereas Goff, it stings differently because you go, I made it to a Super Bowl, and now, like, I'm out of here. So you can make the argument that they hadn't completely written him off because they traded him for somebody in Matthew Stafford. It works out. They win a ring and all that kind of stuff. But Like that to me, like the doubts that I had about Goff, it's like, well, if you traded him,
Yeah.
then doesn't that kind of mean, and then I'll never forget like Dilfer saying that McVay wanted a partner at the position. He wanted a partnership as opposed to like a mentorship with Goff. And I thought that was pretty revealing. And yet here we go now. Like,
Yeah, but
Goff
Goff was a pup then. And that makes sense. And that's exactly what Sean wanted. That's exactly what Sean got.
And it worked. It's crazy
worked.
that it worked. It worked out for everybody. But you're right. I mean, at Darnold, at one point, you're wondering, although all of us Darnold nerds, because I liked him better than I think anybody else in the draft, which, look, between all of the different options, there's certainly between Lamar and Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Darnold's likely never capturing that. You could get into a Baker conversation and poor Josh Rosen. But
it's funny, though, how bad of a class is that, like 3 years in, right? You remember,
because
that was supposed
Allen's
to be like the super class. We talked about that with was it 83? Like, I remember doing the draft, and it was like going back to the Marino and all, and Jim Kelly, that whole class. And then all of a sudden you're 3 years in and Rosen's dead to rights. Darnold's done. Baker sucks. You know what I mean? Like, we got these two guys, and even like Allen like played good and you saw the flashes, but like his first year, is he ever going to quite, pull it all together? And so,
no, I think
Lamar, like we forget right. Lamar struggled the first couple of years. And you wondered, is he ever going to be able to like get over the hump and become a good enough passer? So like the first few years of that class, it was like, whew, did we overhype and oversell that? But now you look back and Rosen's the bust of them all, but you got 4 damn good quarterbacks, 2 of them elite, So it turned out to be, every bit as good. What was it? Tony Eason? Tony Eason was in that class in 83. I mean, he was better than Rosen, but I remember was he the outlet? No, there was somebody else.
I think it was the Ken O'Brien ahead of Marino.
Yeah.
So I can look it up here again, but I just remember it was Elway 1, and then it was Todd Blackledge, and then it was Jim Kelly, then it was Tony Eason, and then it was Ken O'Brien 24th, and then Marino 27th. So Marino went behind all of those dudes.
Yeah.
All right. A couple things that I want to get to here in the next 5 minutes, and then we'll finish it up. The decision to go, I don't know if you have anything on the Jets part of it. That loss last night, disastrous. The Sunday night, the prime time, multiplier, throw it in there because it makes it even worse, and everybody's just dumping on the Jets. But I understood why the Steelers went with Russell Wilson to see what it looked like, and it looked terrible at the start, but there was enough there to probably build on or talk yourself into. He's clearly more willing to raise the risk just throwing balls to Pickens there. But I just think they're going to be a really good defense that is going to have a quarterback. I would imagine there's not ever going to be a moment where you feel like the quarterback question has been answered for the Steelers with their 2 options this year.
I agree. And I think Russell Wilson and the Steelers were aided by a secondary that was decimated last night. The three starters or 3 significant contributors weren't even suited up last night. I believe you had, I think 2 or 3 injuries during the game. So they were down to like nuts and bolts. Like they didn't have much in the secondary. I'm not making excuses, but
no, but it is kind of funny that we've had 2 Steelers primetime games where like Dallas didn't feel like they could even put a defensive lineman out there.
Right.
And then you have the Jets secondary part of it, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So it's encouraging. There's no question about it. And does it add an element? I think there was a good discussion about it on the broadcast. Like, I think it was a broadcast. I forget, someone was talking about like, there were, with Justin Fields, you add that numbers advantage, right, in the run game. And so that can help create things in the run game. But by the threat of being able to stretch you out vertically and more consistency from the quarterback, that's going to spread you out. as a defense. It's going to back you off as a defense. So there are two ways to accomplish it, ultimately what Pittsburgh wants to accomplish. And so they're trying this out. And in the first go around was successful. And that, is it more productive? Is it more effective? Because we're going to win with defense. We're going to win with special teams. We're going to win with running the football and controlling things on offense. That's how we're going to do it, right? And so is it more effective to back defenses off and have more of a legitimate threat and put more of a scare in the deep portion of the field with Russell Wilson? Or is it more effective to have a running back type presence at the quarterback position to create a numbers advantage? So I get why Tomlin did it. Now here's the beauty. You've got both of them. And once everyone settles in and understands their role, and if they continue to have some sort of success with Russell Wilson moving forward, then you bring in Justin and you have packages for him and short yardage, goal line, different series, different points in the game. And also, like if Russell goes down, something happens, there's not many better backup quarterback situations in the league than having Justin Fields come in. So I'll be totally honest. I didn't think they should have made the move, but after watching it, after one game, I see why Tomlin wanted to, and I think he has to be pleased with what he saw. But I don't get the sense from Pittsburgh that they're absolutely like this is the only way. But he has said
they already said it. They already said like we're not opposed to like going back to Fields.
But he also said if we go back to Fields, that's it.
It's over.
Yeah. So it'll be fun to watch.
I do wonder if there was some kind of conversation there with Russ's agent and the kind of stuff that Russ would want, because he's difficult, is that I need to at least like you got to, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Like that's an NBA thing sometimes where you have to do the agent a favor.
I don't see Mike Tomlin doing anyone any favors.
Yeah, I just wonder if they felt, well, maybe he felt like he owed it to Russell Wilson as this veteran guy because, Belichick, there's all those old school coaches used to have that deal about like how you don't lose your job to injury until you lose your job to injury.
Yeah.
Because he did it. That used to be a thing that was like very accepted back in the day. Maybe it was more Parcells than it was Belichick, but as soon as Belichick, Bledsoe goes down and he's like, all right, you lost. And Bledsoe couldn't believe it. Like Bledsoe couldn't believe
still
he wasn't
to this
getting
day
his job.
Can't believe it.
Right.
Yeah. All the Super Bowl rings later, still, watch the documentaries.
Look, I love Drew Bledsoe. One of the most uncomfortable interviews I've ever done is I asked about the Brady thing, and I was co-hosting and Will Kane was filling in that day. And then he's like, all right, well, you lost your job to Tony Romo. And Bledsoe's like, Jesus Christ. Like the whole interview it sucked because like Will was going with the Cowboys angle of like, wow, we're on this topic of you losing your gig. Let's do it again in another city. And I was sitting there like looking and I didn't blame Will for asking the question, but I'm just thinking like in the arc of the interview, like you can't do it to him twice in the same 10-minute hit. And then on the way out, we're like, so what's going on with your winery? And he's like, yeah, dude. Thanks guys. Like,
go believe yourself.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It was the nicest go fuck yourself goodbye on a radio interview that I've ever done. I didn't really blame him. Okay. Last thing that I want to touch on here. I spent some time talking about Mahomes and this version of him, but the reason this version of him is still at a 6-0 is because of this defense, man. And I don't know how you felt about like the different parts of it, but the fact that they could move on from Snead. We know that Chris Jones, now that Donald is gone, is the best interior defensive lineman in all of college football. But their linebackers, between Bolton being back and healthy, Drew Tranquill, Leo Chenal, like this is a really nasty group to go with a couple guys in the secondary that I really like. So as they rebuilt this defense with youth and had the luxury of being able to do it because Mahomes seems to fix anybody's problems, what did you think about the pieces they were putting into place here? Because I don't know that anybody would have thought the Chiefs have the best linebacker group in this 4-3 alignment, which doesn't really mean anything anyway because everybody plays more secondary guys. But I just feel like this group of linebackers is out there making plays, and especially with Fred Warner not having Greenlaw to his side with his injury, there's a real conversation about this group, not just the D tackle and not just McDuffie in the secondary.
I don't think enough credit gets given to Brett Veach. Like everyone knows,
dude, he's incredible.
The big name, and I did the Chiefs preseason games for 2 years, so I got to know him a little bit, and talk to him a little bit. Not as much as I would have liked, to be quite honest, because we had a job to do and all that. But like I had some good conversations with he and Andy Reid together. And like every organization, if you have a great coach, the great coach has a general manager who understands exactly what works and the pieces that are necessary. This organization worked together as a family, if you will, like in total lockstep, understanding this process, right? Veach is the one who came to Andy Reid like 2 years earlier, I think when Mahomes was a freshman or whatever it was, and was like, that's our guy. And remember, like his tape was all over the place. He was a mess. He's like, this is the guy that will fit what you want to do to take your offense to the next step. And they started studying, and they told me the stories of going back in the room and how Andy was like, enough, shut up. I got it, but it's not for another year for the draft. Like I got it. He's like, but he was persistent. So it starts there, right? And then you go through the drafts, and I'm not going to bore you and go down the whole list, but you go through the drafts after that. It was all about, okay, we got a young quarterback, sit him a year, handled the process perfectly. But from a personnel standpoint on the back end, everyone talks about Alex Smith, developing him, giving him a year, giving Patrick Mahomes a year to sit back and learn, Andy developing him, all those things. But from a personnel standpoint, it was all offense, get him weapons. Bring in, draft picks, early draft picks. Bring in guys that are going to be speed. We're going to take this offense and this West Coast system, and we're going to make it uniquely ours. And we got to do that with speed and difference makers to match up with what we have in this unbelievable arm and unbelievable playmaker, right? And they did that. And what suffered? The defense did. But they were shootouts, right? Now you got to pay Patrick. I'm just going with the mechanics of building this roster, this organization, and keeping it at a high level, not just getting it there, but keeping it at a high level. Now we got to pay him. But in the meantime, in that 4-year span before we got to really pay him, we have developed him into the best quarterback in the league, or at the time, the second best quarterback behind Brady, right? And so in doing that, right, Ryan, we recognize now we can peel back some of that help a little bit, but we got to get good on the defensive side. And Chris Jones was earlier. That was 2016, right? The second round pick on Jones, who had some character issues, fell to the second. They got him there. But drafting, developing, keeping has been the key. Nick Bolton, 2021, first round pick on him, stud. Trent McDuffie, 2022, first round pick. Karlaftis, also the same year, first round pick, and the defensive end. Leo, you just mentioned, 2022, third round pick. I went through this defense. 9 of the 11 dudes were drafted. And almost all of them, 2021, starting with Bolton. Chris Jones was 2016, but 2021, 2022, 2023. That 3-year span, they said, all right, we've got to get great on the defensive side to support and not force the offense to carry us all the time. And they did it. They loaded up and they hit on their picks. It's one thing to use early round picks. How many times we talk, well, they spent 7 picks on the defensive front 7 in a 4-year span in the first 3 rounds, but only 3 of them panned out. Well, they're hitting on all these guys. And so you've seen this, and then you've got the best defensive coordinator in all the NFL to match with it. And now Mahomes, they're not having to put up big numbers. He's going to continue to get better. He's not playing at the level that he wants to be playing. They've had all sorts of injuries on the offensive side, but we're sitting here going into week 7, week 8, and they're undefeated. And they look like a team that's absolutely going to make another Super Bowl run, right?
Yeah, I forget if it was Tranquil. You'll have to forgive me for confusing him with Leo, but there was a tackle on Kittle where I was like, you don't see Kittle ever get tackled like that. And it's just, dude, they've got an attitude.
Yep.
They're fast. And, they're a big part of the reason. As much as I love Mahomes, they're a big part of the reason. All right. We're going to bounce, man. That was great. And again, your first episode will be out Tuesday. We're taping it. Right, so we're going live. I don't know what we're doing. All I know is I'm going to press a couple buttons here. We're going to fire it up on Tuesday. It's our first show. I'm sure it will be an absolute disaster. We're having David Pollock on, talk some college football. We're going to get into the quarterback class. I don't know what else we're going to talk about. I got my guy, cynical Steve Mensch. He's going to be by my side for, as he has been the last 20 years, and we'll see how it goes. And I'm sure what we roll out tomorrow will be nothing like what we're rolling out in 6 months, as you said. But I'm excited to get it started. Been on the sideline way too long, and I'm
I'm ready to go.
All right. And the great thing about having a new podcast is that the algorithm gets so weirded out by all of this traffic for something that's brand new. It'll probably go to number one overall in sports. So you can screen grab that and say, hey, I have the number one podcast in sports. You can do that.
I promise you one thing. I know you're the algorithm guy. I know you get all sorts of bitches, complaints, understandings, knowledge, everything else. I'm going to leave that up to you. I'll text you like every few weeks. Like, what
I'm going to do it
know?
for you. I'm just saying,
I know.
look at
And you'll
the
be
number one
angry
podcast
enough, and
in sports.
you'll take that headspace away from me where I'm not good at that stuff. I stay in my lane.
All right. Out Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturday nights, The McShay Show with Todd McShay and others. Thanks, man.
Thanks, brother. I'll talk to you.